All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome to a new episode of Miracle Theory. I have an amazing guest today. This is our first Zoom video episode. So she has a wonderful story for us, and listen closely and you'll take away something wonderful. So with that, let's get started. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, your age, where you're from, stuff like that.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Brittney Parker. Oh gosh, I'm 32. Tell me about you. I reside currently in Rancho Cucamonga, and I was born and raised in Monrovia, Duarte, small town in San Gabriel Valley. So yeah, I've been here in Rancho since I was 6 years old. So this is where I'm from, pretty much. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for being here and talking to me today. So we're just gonna really kick off the episode with something I like to do with all my guests. Just keeping that story that you have in mind. I'm asking you what your biggest fear is. I just kind of want to see how it relates to what you're going to tell us, if it's a result of what happened to you or if it's entirely different. So what is your biggest fear, Brittney?
If I could say anything, I'd say I have two.
Okay.
Well, I'll put it this way, a testimonial. First, it was, of course, nobody ever wanted to die. You're like, wait, everything stops. You can't imagine what that is like.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody still has that fear, though, because of the transition. You don't know how it's going to happen, what's going to happen, whatever. But one of the main fears was disappointing my mother. That was probably the scariest. It was something that always would gnaw at me, or so disappointing her, and the fear of death at one point was definitely like,
that's a big one. I feel like that's kind of always in the background for anyone, no matter who you are, what you've been through, for sure. So thank you for sharing those. I know that can be a pretty loaded question too.
Yeah, a real question, but you have to be honest with yourself. So
exactly, being honest with yourself, that's a really important thing to do. So, okay, well, with that, my next question is going to be kind of, I guess, a little summary of what you're going to be talking about. If you could title your story, what would you title that? I know that's a big one too, but it's always interesting to hear what people have to say. So,
well, being a creative, I never had like plain ideas of, just things in life. Mm-hmm. So when all of this stuff happened, the spirit gave me a title. I always say it wrong. The letter 5.
The letter 5.
5 is, because 5 is the day I was born in November. And then Grace, GRACE, 5.
Nice.
And the number 5 is something to do with, I think it's something to do with grace. But I feel like God has been so gracious over my life. And as I write and everything like that, that's how I look at the story of my life.
That's beautiful.
So I almost cried.
No, talking about stuff like this, it's like emotions expected. And the letter 5 is very creative. Yeah, super creative. So that's really beautiful. I'm excited to hear how that translates into what you're going to tell us today.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, now that we have those two questions, we're just going to jump into the story. So this is going to be the time for you or the segment where you're just going to tell us what's going on, start to finish, go through whatever you're comfortable with, and just we're here to listen. So the floor is yours.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess I'm here today because I was provided a miracle with grace. So be still here, still be here, right there. So short version of what the long book version would be. I was diagnosed with lupus in 2014. It changed my life, my whole family's life, my son's life. That is the anointed one right there, as far as seeing what he's been able to transition into. but I was diagnosed and changed everything about me from the inside out. Before my life before that, I was, modeling, into fashion, just, doing all of those things in media and really kind of going uphill and doing really awesome things. I was really excited and very proud of some of the accomplishments that I made. They weren't major, but they were right where I needed to be, apparently. Of course, we're all human. We do fleshly things. We go through things in life and, make mistakes. But I thought I was doing the right thing in that season. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I wanted to come home. Something was wrong. I couldn't get it together emotionally and physically. Okay. So at the time I was living in Vegas, I was married, and it was a very awkward, strange time for me. So I asked my mother and my grandmother, who I've in the nucleus is my nucleus. Yeah. My mother, my mom, and my grandmother. So three of us, like all the time before my mother passed. And when I came home, I just knew something wasn't right. There was like a spirit of death, dark cloud, feeling, eerie all the time. Didn't understand it, so I wanted to come home. I was scared. Yeah. Came home, knew something was wrong. I had developed the personality of a hypochondriac. Everything was wrong. Oh my gosh, would I have this? I have breast cancer. I have this. I have that. I was just, and my mom was taking me to the doctors almost every day if I got her to. And finally, my stepfather came from LA, was like, "You're going to the hospital because I don't like the way you're acting." He threw me in the back of his truck very late one night. We end up in a hospital called Pomona Valley here in my city. And from there, it was 5 days. It took 5 days for them to understand and see that I was dying on the inside.
Wow.
And that's technically, lupus is a autoimmune disease that attacks all of the organs. I forgot how much blood I had lost, but I had lesions of my face, scabs in my ears, all in my hair, everything. I was tacked. It was like somebody took all of my hair out, just everywhere. So finally, 5 days later, a week before my son's birthday, finally a diagnosis. They tested me for everything you could think of. And it was a nightmare for my family. It was. Fast forward, learn to cope with the disease, living with it, getting back on my grind, getting back into the things I love, finding my security again. This is a disease that can make you very insecure. So I got back into it. Ended up doing an event again in Vegas. Vegas is probably not for me. But I had been staying, we had stayed in the hotel, and I kept telling my mom, I don't feel well. I just can't get it together. This is in 2017.
Okay.
Something just didn't feel right. And I was just like feeling that, out of myself. I'm just come out of my skin or something. And I called my stepmother, who is a nurse at UMC. So when I called her, she said, "Go to the hospital, let them know you have lupus, and they'll take care of you, whatever." So I did. One thing led to another. They admitted me. Okay. I had pneumonia, then I passed out. That's when I blacked out.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember, and I tell people, I have to ask my mother, I have to ask my son, I have to ask my ex-mother-in-law, everybody, what happened. Because the last thing that I remember is I snatched my wig off and said, "Ooh, it is hot," and I was out.
Oh my! That's the last thing.
That was the last thing I remember. Kid you not. Like, I said, "Mom, take this off," and I just basically stripped out my wig and out everything. And it's funny. I really say it's a funny thing because it was such a profound moment that God covered me again, and that was the last thing I remember. So the stories that I'm relaying to you now after that moment are from my family members.
Okay.
So after I did that happen and I woke up, came to the first time, I'm pulling tubes. So they had to restrain me because I didn't know what happened. I'm like, I'm ready to go. What are y'all doing?
Yeah.
You know? And I couldn't talk. I didn't know there was a ventilator going down my throat. The first time. Like it was just, they were like, you were trying to get up out of the hospital bed and walk and go home. Like, but you had tubes. Let me see. I have a keloid here from one of the tubes that was in my neck. It was just, I didn't know though.
Right. Scared probably. Like,
yeah, it's just like, well, what, and I wanted some ice. So I was trying to write notes to them. Can I please have some ice? And I guess I went out the second time. Both times were, I get this wrong sometimes. One was 7 minutes, one was 10 minutes, but I can't remember which is which, of course. And it was just an emotional roller coaster for everybody. So as my cousin had probably mentioned, everybody came to see me to say their goodbyes. Most people. My cousin. Hold on, I'll be there. Oh, I'll be, yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was like, I probably should text them. I apologize. And everybody came to see me. My closest cousin, we're about 5 days apart. He couldn't handle it, so he was all over the place, But yeah, but people don't know that on the other side of what was going on, I was fighting darkness, and then I saw light, and then God revealed so much to me in the midst of that. So it was definitely, the doctors told my mom, we need to pull the plug. I don't know what you're waiting for. So my uncle, he was probably the only one that could do it. I don't know why, but he came to pray the Hebrew prayer over my body. And then, they wanted to transition, but my mom would not relent. She wouldn't let them tell her what to do.
Okay.
So if it wasn't for her, I know that decisions would have been shady, but I'm very grateful. And God revealed to me and showed me her in the midst of it after the fact. She was floating through hallways. And it was like he was carrying her too. Like everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I lived in that hospital for a month.
A month?
Yeah. And
that's a long time to be in the hospital.
Yeah. And all the way in Vegas. So I was away from my son.
So you were still in Vegas for that whole month then?
Okay. Yeah. Yes. And I couldn't come home unless I had a dialysis chair. Okay. So I'm calling. I thought I had to call to get a dialysis chair. I'm crippled and handicapped and the whole nine, and I'm on my phone calling, DeVita, and they're like, "No, your social worker needs to call. You need to."
Patient. Like what?
I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Oh my gosh.
The process, So yeah, and my father lives in LA, so I had him drive and come get me, and I didn't get home till 3:00 in the morning.
Wow. Okay.
To California, but yeah, I was determined because I was so tired of them asking me, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, you guys tell me why I'm here.
Right, like you just survived. That was your one thing you had to do, not answer questions.
So it was a very defining moment.
Yeah.
It was definitely a miracle. It was definitely it changed a lot of perspective for a lot of people.
Okay.
I've had friends that couldn't believe stuff like that, or friends that have church parents and they were rebellion. Like I've heard testimonies from this one testimony, and I think that's why I'm excited to be here, but I'm very humble in the space where I'm not, hey, this is me. I want people to know love. Like, yeah.
I
It's
what is amazing to me just off the bat is that people literally came to your bedside to say goodbye to you. Like they really thought that was it.
yeah.
It, it definitely
My
was
cousin, they
not.
came from Portland. They came from Portland, and I'm like, why are these people here? I kept asking, like, after the fact, because it was still trickling, like, people wanted to just see me. And
Mhm.
I'm like, why are they here though? Like, I'm going home. They can come see me when I get home. And that
Right.
was afterwards. And,
Mm.
but the people that were there, even when I was under, same thing. And it was just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, thank
Just
you.
that was different here.
Mhm. Thank
So,
you for sharing that. That's monumentous. It's monumentous. It's no small thing.
yeah,
You were like basically at war with your own body, and then
my gosh, if
you
I could,
won, and you were blessed, and you came out the other side. So that's
yeah.
hallelujah. Truly, truly. Yes.
Seriously, I'm like, I just, cause I'm like, are you sure? Sometimes and I'm like, I know my mom would never lie to me. And then people's stories add up, and I'm like, okay, like, ooh, that's crazy. But what are we eating for lunch? Cause I'm just so grateful. But, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm very, and I'm still a homebody. I'm not all over the place, because of my health and everything. So, God had to tell me though, like, your heart is going to have to change with some things. And he's been working on me with that. So that goes into this heart surgery situation.
Yeah,
And
yeah. What?
so before this whole Vegas thing, because this is how I ended up in the hospital, I busted a valve in my chest.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it. And I was like, ugh, and I kept going about my business. Now, at the time, I was working kind of blogger slash A&R for a music festival brand that my friends had started. And we would book artists and have these meetings, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, cool.
And I was on my way to a podcast meeting, I believe, at the time.
Oh,
And my son was in the car. I love the whole idea I could take my son to work situation. So
yeah.
I'm obsessed with that, low key. Just keep him involved and keep him in the right headspace. So we were going, and that's how that happened. So when I get home, they let me know your valve is busted and you will eventually need surgery. So I'm like, okay. I go, this was a whole year or, well, 3 years. So it's not something that's life threatening, but it
Okay.
is effective in my body.
Mm.
Um, so finally, of course, my mother fighting cancer, we're focused on her
Yeah.
and me at the same time, but like, because she was going, little backtrack, when I was in the hospital in Vegas, she was going back and forth to California to go to chemo and then come back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's the true MVP. She's
Yes.
the true MVP because she was on it. She did not miss a beat.
Oh.
Uh, and so finally, when I came home, I'm on dialysis and in center dialysis, just doing all of those things. A new life for me. This
Right.
is from the model chick, the video girl, the interviewer, the host. Now I'm looking at every 70-year-old man coughing, and then I'm just like, wow. And I'm not saying it just really humbled me. I'm not saying, you know what I mean? I love people, but that really humbled me how fast things can change.
Yeah.
So,
I wanted
yeah.
to ask you, just if while you're telling your story, you mentioned, when it was like almost God was asking you to maybe change some things in your heart, and you're saying this whole experience really humbled you, and you were saying you were a model in the media, and like you had all these other things going, these other aspirations. Can you pinpoint what you think He was asking you to change in your heart?
Man, I feel like we're in counseling, but no. Um, it was my passive aggressiveness. I'm still working on that. I People don't like to be hurt, but we also don't like to hurt people. So there was, some emotional things that I was dealing with. Concerning family, concerning friends, concerning my assumptions, attitudes, and stuff like that. And he really brought me like, hey, look, everything's not what you think, and everything is not what it seems. Perception is reality. Just showing me different things, and I'm like, okay. And he's like, girl, you're not that great. So sit, and I'm like, okay, I get it, and I really was like, like it was a terrible, great feeling because you're not numb where you can't be taught, you know what I mean? And you're not callous, and that's what I was afraid of as well. Yeah, and I was just like, wow. So look, I take a lot of heart when it comes to sitting with myself.
Okay,
And
that's
Brittney, did you do that? Or seriously? So I try to do that a lot. I still want to invest more time into counseling, but I that has really turned the switch on for me a lot.
So it sounds like you take a lot of time to think and like do journal and like.
If I show you my little area,
you have that going.
my family, like, they know to buy me stationery, they know to buy me notebooks, like electronics and notebooks and all that kind of stuff. That's me.
Yeah.
Clothes, I'm cool, but you'd be like, that girl needs to.
So if you got like a really cool jacket versus like a really cool notebook at Christmas, you'd want the notebook instead of like the really cool jacket.
I come from a family, my grandmother, my mom, my grandmother, I have women in my family that are fashionable. That's what we do. I'm not thrifting, consignment, everything. I mean, we do that. But I just have a tighter love for creating content, stationery. So just like, so, writing and everything like that is definitely a therapy for me as well. I just have to get better at, I don't know, expressing. I don't know what it is, but I love to write.
That's great. Writing, I mean, not everyone's good at writing, and I have thought about this before when hearing certain stories and stuff. And, it's almost like you've kind of been given an opportunity to like refine your gift. You have a gift and you're given that chance to kind of really specialize that and really hone in on that and take the time, dedicate yourself to that. So that's really beautiful too. Yeah. So I have some other questions. I want to dive a little bit deeper. And this one's always interesting because it's kind of like self-reflection on what happened before the experience. And so if you could go back and give yourself advice, knowing what you know now before you went through your first experience, what advice would you give yourself? Sorry. I'm making you think a little bit.
No, one would be to calm down. I realized that inside I was so like, just so, ready to, not so much go off, but just like, why would you, I was snappy inside. And I just be like, okay. I think that not so much that I should have let it out, but use my avenues and my perspective, the right perspective, to let it out.
Okay.
If I want to dance that day, let it out that way. Instead of holding it, because I know I was holding a lot, upset at a lot. I think I was not accepting my mom's cancer. I just knew in my mind that we was gonna get right. We were both gonna have this testimony. She was gonna be sitting right next to me telling this story right along with you, because that's what I wanted to believe. Mm-hmm. And even to her dying day, every time they let me bring her home from the hospital. So before, I was holding in a lot because I think that she wasn't being completely honest with me at the time. She
About
wanted me to
her,
about
about
how bad
condition.
it was.
Okay.
Yeah, how far it had already progressed. Because we were trying to still do and go, and I wait for her to, relax and take a pain pill, and she, really, let me take a pain pill. I'm just gonna take a pain pill and lay down. So she never let me see any weakness.
Okay.
And so when I finally, learned how real it was kind of very upsetting.
Yeah.
But we did try to spend as much time together. Um, in the event, we would go stay at hotels for days, away from everybody,
Mhm.
or just take our dates like we usually do, go shopping, stuff that she really liked to do. And she still go to the casino and get her free gifts, play her dollars or whatever she had. Like she didn't let anything stop her.
Yeah.
And I was really envious of the idea of she would be taking away from me.
Yeah.
Knowing that her heart, but the way her presence still lingers is, I almost don't even worry. I
Yeah.
know where she
Yeah.
is, and I know that like she's forever here, and
Yeah.
everybody tells me that every day, all the time.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, it was definitely what I was going through and feeling just my disease and feeling, not the same person and dealing with a lot of deeper rooted things as well.
Yeah.
Um, people, assume that I had the best childhood, which I probably had a very good childhood. I don't come from a slum or anything. But at the same time, there was lack of emotional connections that probably, kind of put me in a tizzy a little bit. But no matter what, as far as my mother and my upbringing, my grandmother and stuff, they taught me a lot. So I know for a fact that whatever I was going through, whatever came up, the disease is what had to bring it to a head.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what kind of pulled the wool off
yeah.
your eyes. Yeah. Yeah. That a lot happened in the last, you said 2017 was when it started?
Well, 2016 is when I was officially, or
Okay.
14 when I was officially diagnosed. So I've had lupus. It'll be 7 years in August.
Wow. 7 years. 7 years.
Yeah.
So I guess this next question is kind of like the big hitter question. And you've said a lot as to like how you're feeling and kind of how you felt since everything. With all of that in mind, why do you think you in particular survived? Why do you think you had to fight and you were brought back? Like, do you think maybe you're going to be doing something big in the future, or obviously besides your son and your family being there?
Um, I would love that to be. I would love to share this story, share my story. Um, I think about that, and then in my, I guess, most humble mind, I'm like, well, God just wanted to work my behind. That's all He wanted to do. He wanted to show me His power and His glory, and that's what I really think about. Like, if I don't do anything and nothing happens, I know that I was able to like receive the grace of God. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
point. But I really, ideally, have been understanding that about myself and wanting to move into that because of what I've already done. And it hasn't been much, but it's enough to say, okay, here's the story, because you have so much to really tell. So we need to show people how real I am, and we need to show people that everything is possible, because
Yeah.
so yeah, when they canceled my heart surgery this past time, the first time they canceled it in April because of COVID and all that jazz.
Mhm.
So I'm going through that. I'm trying to get some type of medication because I'm in pain in my heart, in my chest area. I'm calling. They're like, we can't help you. You can't have anything because your kidneys. So just cry and go to sleep. I'm like, okay. So one morning I'm on Facebook Live. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning, or like 5 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep because I'm in pain. So I hop on this girl's prayer live. She's like, I'm looking for this girl. I don't know who she is, but she's in pain. And I had just began typing, I'm in this pain. And she said, Brittney. And I was like, okay, all right. Like, this is cool. I'm like, she saw my comment on the live, and she's like, you're in pain. And we started praying. She's like, I don't know who you are, but put your hand over your chest. So I'm in the middle of my bed, praying over myself. She's praying. And long story short, after that prayer, I didn't have any pain since.
Wow.
Doctors couldn't do anything for me. I wish that I was making this. I had to record the whole thing because
I believe you. I believe you. So.
I screen record. I think I saved the recording of the live. But I hadn't had any pain. So I didn't see my doctors. I seen all my other doctors, but then, and finally this past, what is this, November? I think November 7th, or I had a doctor's appointment. I think it's November 4th actually. And I finally got to see my heart doctor. Oh, it was like a relief. Like I'm crying in there. And this is 2 days before or a day before my birthday. And they're like, well, when do you want your surgery? And I'm like, tomorrow. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Right away. And they were like, okay. So that's when the process started. Of course, I was preparing, doing everything that I needed to do. Then I get to the hospital and my temperature is 103. They let me in the hospital. They let me in the bed, in the gown. It was 6:50, almost time. I'm in pre-op. And they're like, your temperature is not dropping. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, back to the drawing boards, Lord, because got to figure something out, what's going on. And I cried like I found out my mom passed for the first time because I was like, what is what is going on, And it was, he told me, little more effort, a little more. We got to do a little bit more stripping. So I was like, okay. And sure enough, instances and situations and things have been coming up and things, so I'm in a battlefield. It's just like we all are, And now I'm just like, okay, I see what he wants, and I'm just working on that. And now we're back. March 19th, Lord willing, I'm gonna work hard at this. We'll be back in the hospital under the knife. So
March 19th.
Sounds crazy to say. Yes.
March 19th. Okay.
Yep.
March 19th it is.
So yeah, I'm making the provisions and preparing a little better. It's almost like I know it will happen, but I don't really. So my preparation will be a little bit better. So I'm excited. I am. I'm not scared, and I wasn't scared the first time until that night. I was like, oh my God, I can't sleep. But yeah, it's gonna be okay. I know it is.
Yeah, I think it will too.
Yeah,
it will too. You seem, considering everything that you just told me in the last however many minutes, you have like this like calm, peaceful energy about all of it, and I feel like that's taken time. But you really protrude that.
I have my mama sitting right here, and my aunt's right here. The Lord is right here, and I'm just like, cool, we gonna do this because I don't know, like I'm not really, I'm not aggressive. I'm very calming I'll probably say something, you'd be like, dang, why'd you say it like that? But I probably don't mean it. It's just the way I speak. I'm one of those very proper Black girls that they say. I'm a Caucasian one in my family. I don't know. Like they be like, Brittney, you quiet. Okay. Whatever and that's just how I am. I don't know. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, you seem like your mom is with you, God's with you, and the reality of why I talk to people, I want to know their peace and their miracle theory. Like, why do you think you survived? What's going on in your heart and your mind, and sharing that with everyone. And you've added another story, like you're another person who has a story like this, and it's very real and it happened, and you currently living to talk about it, and
yeah.
you're gonna keep growing and keep talking and keep sharing. And now you have an audience that you're talking to who somebody's gonna relate to you, and I think that's really hi. That's really beautiful. Your whole story is just magnificent from beginning to end, and I hope you know that. And coming from someone, I have not experienced that, and my mind is blown in the best way. And I'm a believer of miracles, and I think that you're living one, and it's awesome. It's awesome.
It's an everyday work as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You still like. If I get up in the morning, get dressed, I go outside, I walk out the door. My family knows my condition. Everybody in my house knows my condition. But Jane at the grocery store, she might cuss me out. You know what I mean? She doesn't know what I'm doing, or she going through something too, or she just ignorant, and what have you. But I don't be like, well, I'm sick, and
right.
you don't know. I just be like, okay,
yeah. Moving on, whatever. Yeah.
So it's like showing compassion is one of my lessons as well.
I love
that. Honey, hold on now. So just imagine you could go through it too, and just going back, because again, being on dialysis, it was a life-changing moment. Mentally, in every aspect, every sense of the word. And I would make fun of myself. My mom would be like, Mom, look at me. I look like Shrek, because my stomach would be really big, full of fluid. And she'd be like, girl, if you don't go sit. And I'd be wobbling because I was in a wheelchair on a walker, But we made light of the situation, because what else were we going to do?
Right. And not everyone can do that. That's
it's just like, and I want people to laugh, like it's going to be okay. If he got me through this, what is really that serious,
Yeah. And that's actually a good, I wanted to ask you one last question, in terms of like making light of the situation and talking about what happened. I like to ask, what kind of advice or feedback would you give to people watching? Maybe people who are diagnosed with a condition or not, or me. What would you tell us about life, about people, or anything in general?
Well, for one, I'm learning every day. But if it's anyone that has a condition, what I always tell them is, don't be hard on yourself. I am hard on myself because I didn't know not to be. And I'm really realizing that really don't. Because if you survive it, or you get your diagnosis, it's really not the end of the world. Like, I was just like, oh, it's over. It's done. This is it, because you need to learn to grasp yourself again. So just, my thing is, get support groups, get in support groups, whether it be virtually or physically. And that's what really helped me sleep at night a lot. Like, I was like, I am going crazy. Lord, like, I thought I was insane. And I mean, psych word worthy, insane. I was ready to go. Pack me up, let's go. I'll take myself. Like, it was, until I got into Facebook support groups, because I wasn't ready to be seen or be, in contact with people. So that really helped me sleep at night, because I would say, "Does anybody go through this?" "Yeah, I went through this. I was just diagnosed," or "I've had lupus for 30 years," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I can live with this."
Yeah.
And that brought me back to life and a reality of life. And for the people in my family, people like yourself who are, not diagnosed with anything, I would say be patient with this and take the time to understand,
Okay.
like really understand. Because for me, I'm a forgetful person with this disease. I didn't think being forgetful was for real. When they tell me, oh, like my sister has lupus as well, but she's my stepsister. That's another story. um, she would forget. And we used to say, girl, like you were 17, but you did not forget. You just think, but she was forgetting stuff. And now I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm just because my whiteboard, that's what this for all my appointments and stuff, because I forget. And or I forget, or if I get conversation, or I'll leave something, oh, I forgot that, and it's like it's more than necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell people, especially my surroundings, to be patient with me, and even with my energy. My energy, they just put me back on prednisone because, I want to go to sleep. What am I new? I'm getting my new outfits are pajamas. I just put it that way. So, but there's times where I spring up and I'm ready to go. So I say that to the audience is, if you don't have the disease, or if you don't have a condition, take the time to try to understand, have compassion, and be patient with that person, because they're new to it too. If they, if it's new to it.
That's like 3 pillars right there.
Yes.
Compassion, patience. Amazing. Amazing. And that's coming from you, who's literally speaking from experience. So listen up, everybody. Listen up. Yeah, and we live in this world that's constantly moving, and we're constantly drawn to things that are just not worth our energy. Yeah, we put energy into it anyways, and energy should go into those things, compassion and togetherness and family and all that stuff. So, way to just tie that all together. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Just one thing, it's a beauty to see my grandmother turn 97. Like,
yeah,
whoop, she was at every hospital. She always wants to go to my doctor's appointment. Well, can I go? Oh, well, we going? And I'm like, you're not driving me, But she wants to be there. She's so indebted. But she was a private duty nurse, so retired nurse.
And she's 97. A nurse who's now 97, everyone. Her grandma's birthday was today?
It's today, yes. And she is at the casino.
Happy birthday to your grandma.
Yes, I will let her see this.
Yeah, hopefully she gets some big wins at blackjack or something.
I'll be like, ma'am, ooh, she knows. I can't, and I'm not trying to.
That's awesome.
Her thing.
Yeah, I'm very grateful, and I feel very blessed to have met you and been able to talk to you about everything that has happened in your life. And it was fun, and it's I love having conversations with people like you and people in my life about everything that's happened, and there's so much to learn from each other. Just like you're learning every day about yourself. Like I am too, constantly.
Yeah.
And I've learned from you today, so I'm grateful for that, and I can't wait to share this. So thank you very much once more. If there's anything else you want to add, or I can put your email, any sort of like.
Yeah, that's fine. I learned that I wish I had dimples, because your dimples are popping.
Oh, thank you. I was gonna say, your skin is glowing right now.
Thank you, but I was like, gorgeous. You are so beautiful, and I just thank you for this opportunity.
You're gorgeous too, and you're gorgeous on the inside and out. So that's just, I love meeting people like that.